All right. So I'm Nala Hamilton. I am currently the first year in Vanderbilt's biomedical graduate program. Um, and I graduated from Temple last year. And today I have Jack and Ellie who are currently at Temple. They're they passed the first round of Goldwater qualifications. Ellie is a junior in uh, junior at Temple and studies quantum physics. Jack is a sophomore and studies ecology. Um, when I was a junior at Temple, I received the Goldwater for work that I did my sophomore year, and I got it for, I think, biological sciences, probably what Jack's going to apply to. Um, but my research was more focused on genomic analysis. But so this video is supposed to be just an overview of what you want to sort of do for your Goldwater application just to get prepared and then see what uh, it looks like and any skills or tips. And I'm hoping Jack and Ellie can just like interrupt me, ask questions, kind of. I think it's good to have like an interactive thing. So let's see. First and foremost, you guys probably know better than me. What is the Goldwater? Like,
Oh,
okay,
it's a National Science Fellowship. Oh, what's up? Oh, I'm good. Oh, it's just my internet connection is unstable. Can you guys hear me okay?
yeah,
Yeah?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
It seems like I'm lagging a little bit behind. That's okay. I think you guys are getting me right up, like a little bit after I say it, which is fine. It's just because I think I'm international. But anyway, as far as I understand it, the Goldwater is a national fellowship specifically focused on funding or supporting students who are heavily invested in research. And so that's really everything they emphasize, which was really interesting in writing my application, like not having to portray myself as like well-rounded or whatever, and just focusing on that one thing.
Yeah. It's one of the most prestigious like undergraduate research awards that you can get. It's like extremely competitive. It's also a really good sort of stepping stone to apply for the NSF GRFP. And yeah, people who have gotten the Goldwater, that's kind of like a signal for getting into other places. So like if like Ivy League schools, that kind of stuff. So it's really hard. It's not easy. And so the fact that you guys got past the first round means a lot because that's the hardest part, I think, to get selected by your school and whatnot. So the let's see. Let me share my screen. Just share. Okay. One reason why I wanted to record this is because it's really in research and in like student research, that kind of stuff. You reuse things like every year. Like all of this stuff I wrote when I was sophomore, right? And I just continually add to it. So the things that you use for applying to Temple or applying to the Goldwater, you will use for your NSF, you will use for your PhD applications, and you will use in your interviews. So I think both of you guys plan to go to grad school. Is that right? Yeah. So you should get pretty familiar with your stuff. This document is was the most helpful for applying for the Goldwater. you don't get to see the actual application until it like is released. But they ask you to give very specific things about each research project that you've done. In my case, my research project was like a continuum across my time at Temple. And so it was really hard for me to like separate them. And I think that takes effort. So you should do that or try to think about it before you actually apply. So yeah, they'll ask for like literally the month that you started a research project and when you ended it and the average hours. Like for a lot of this stuff, I kind of just like estimated. I was like, oh yeah, 30 hours. That makes sense. And your description. So you want, I think you can put 3 to 5. You want to put 5. Like if you can, even if you only did 3, try and separate it out so you get 5. And um, you want to be pretty concise. I think you only have like, I don't know, 200 words or something to put in each thing. So you have a description of your research project and then you give research skills. And here I just gave a list of my research skills that I learned from the project. Um, I don't think you really want to go into real specifics. Like I think they really just want you to list things. Um, yeah. And then they ask for presentations. So if you guys did any poster sessions or little seminar things or uh, if you had to give a presentation because of a certain grant that you got, something like that, literally like anything you should put down besides like maybe lab meetings. Um, if there's 2 or more labs that you're presenting to, you could probably put that. But they ask for citations. So I put my name, the title of my poster session presented at the Undergraduate Research Symposium 2022, Temple, Philadelphia. And yeah, paper session. So this is just like an oral presentation I presented for the Francis Villay Fellowship, which was like a grant that I got. And you put that alongside each of the research projects that you did. So like this is just for one of my research projects, which I think is the main reason why I got the Goldwater was this project. But let's move on. Yeah. So another thing, you don't want to kind of sound pretentious, but at the same time you kind of do. Like if you can use words like novel, significance, right? Things that make it sound like it's a big deal. Obviously, in undergrad, almost everything, even in grad school, anything that you're going to present is probably not going to be like hold up for a paper or something. I mean, if you write a paper, like congrats, but you're the minority in that. So you want to, people know that this isn't super groundbreaking, but you want to give the impression that if further research was put into it, it would be like what you're doing is like a huge stepping stone in a field of your study, right? Um, yeah, you want it to be like original, new, super cool. Um, and you also want to highlight, I think Ellie, you did good job of saying I in your research essay. So like most of the time in scientific writing, you don't want to use I or we. Um, but for the Goldwater, you do. You want to make yourself look so good. Uh, like you are the next like Nobel laureate or whatever for your field. Like you, and that's kind of what happens. Like the people who get the Goldwater do go on to do like amazing things. I don't know what the percentage is, but I'm sure there's a Nobel laureate who got the Goldwater. Um, and something that helped me with that was trying to uh, separate myself from what I was writing. So, like, try and imagine that you're writing this for a friend. So, like, how would you try and uh, talk up your friend? So, like, you want to make sure that they're like the coolest person and their research is super novel and interesting and has huge significance. A lot of people have that like imposter syndrome and they don't really like talking about themselves. So for this, it's like no one cares, right? Like this isn't going to be, no one's going to look at your application after this. They're just going to see that you got the Goldwater. And so if you say that you're on the path to solving cancer, like go for it, right? Um, okay, do you guys have any questions about this format? Because it's a little bit weird.
It makes sense. Sorry, it's about what it looked like when I remember filling it out. I still need to go over my initial like first time filling it out for the submission, but that's good advice to like hype yourself up as much as possible. I like that.
Yeah. Uh, Also, I would like I did this in a Google Doc. I would keep this in some type of document. So I remember I had this layout and then my PI went through and edited a bunch of shit. So um it was really helpful to just like have it there. And um what I'll get to I guess now is the fact that what I was saying earlier where you will reuse so much stuff. All of these things that I wrote down, I included in my NSF grant application, which I didn't get, but I did get an honorable mention, which is pretty cool. Um, okay, hold on. I didn't put it in my NSF. I put it in my PhD application stuff. So this is my NSF um, research statement. And one thing that I want to highlight from this is sort of how people talk about scientific ideas. So, like in your research statements, or like in this document, like you want to put like a sentence of what you're talking about, your hypothesis, and then how you tested that. And that should be it. And another thing, so for your research statements, try and either italicize or bold or underline big ideas. So if you're trying to get like your hypothesis should be underlined or bolded or something because when people read this, they're all like, you know, like professors or people in academia, they don't have time to read everything. And so they're going to look for big points. And if you can like highlight those, it makes their life a lot easier and it looks like you know what you're doing. Um, yeah, okay, so that's good. let's see. Okay, so how did I get back to? I don't know how to stop. Okay, this is what I wanted to point out. So this is an example of a research statement that I used to apply to Harvard. And in this, I used each of those projects that I listed in the Goldwater, and I took like the main sentences of those and like listed them here. So first project, second project, third project, fourth project, fifth project. And I think it looks really good for you to be able to talk about your research and contextualize them. And so I think it was really helpful to have that Goldwater thing, that document to write uh, my PhD applications. Let's see. And for the Goldwater, you do have like a personal essay, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
there's the three essays. So it's what inspired you to research, the research essay, like the article you write, and then there's a third one. Oh yeah, like what you intend to do, like what your like future goals are.
Okay. Yeah. I think the future goals one, let me see where I had that. Here. I wish there was just a way to share literally my whole screen. Um, okay, so this is my sort of career goals and professional aspirations essay. What they're looking for here is honestly that you want a job in academia. Even if you don't want a job in academia, I think it looks good to say that you do. Um, and same thing for PhD interviews or applications. They want to keep everyone in the same, they want people to go into academia. And so I'm not sure if this is true, but I feel like it feels intuitive that if you say you want to go into academia, maybe you have a higher chance of getting in. I don't know, but let's see. So talked about sort of getting into my lab and my research, and this last sentence uh I think is like sort of hitting the nail on the head, right? It's like this is like actually what my aspirations are. So like all of this is like preamble to this. So another good thing for Goldwater, you want to list specific uh, graduate schools and programs that you think you'll be interested in. So one that shows that like you did your research, you have an idea for where you're going forward. Jack, I don't know if this is like, I think you will probably get away with not doing this if you want because you're a sophomore. I think it's not super expected that you have this, but Ellie, I think you should include this. Uh, let's see. I think for my sort of experience that got me into science was that oral presentation that I did for the Francis Delay Fellowship. And so I just talked about how I liked presenting things. And I think this tied in with my career aspirations. Like, if I want to eventually be a PI, or a professor at a school, like science communication is really good. And I think ideally you want your essays to sort of back up other parts of your application. So I think that's like ideally, if this has if this is just like, oh, you went to summer camp and you really like science, like that's cool um too. But yeah, I think it worked well to incorporate like main theme of your professional aspirations and then the experience that got you into that. Um, let's see. I think the last thing that I'll share with you guys is my actual research essay for the Goldwater. Um, I'm not sure if it's required that you have a title, but I think a title would be helpful. I did not follow uh, sort of the I didn't highlight or underline things, but I wish I did. So if I have so my abstract, this research was conducted to like I would have highlighted this somehow. Like you probably don't want to bold it because you're trying to maximize for space, but underlining, underlying, and or italicizing. I don't know if you're allowed to do different colors, but if you are, a lot of people use blue, so they'll uh, that's another way you could try and highlight it. Um, I think this part is like what you will do in the future, like what are your actual plans to continue this research? So name dropping specific places that you want to intern at or uh, certain databases or things that you can use, like specific things that you can use to advance this research, I think are is really important to mention. It gives ground that like this is something that you really want to do. Um, like I didn't do any of this, but I in a perfect world I would have. But yeah, you don't have enough time. And in grad school, you're probably going to change your research questions and like what you're actually into. So, um, yeah, you don't have to have groundbreaking results. You just have to make it seem like it's an important idea to focus on. Um, okay, I think that's all that like documents that I wanted to share. Um,
Thank you for that. That was really helpful.
yeah, I think I thought I had okay. I'm gonna talk a little bit about uh my NSF application. So even though I didn't get it, honorable mention is still something that you can put on your resume or your CV, and it's still like an achievement. But you guys should apply to it, even if like I didn't think I was going to get the Goldwater. I didn't think I was going to get the NSF. I didn't think I could get into any grad program, but I tried, right? So trying, I think, um, is like is good, right? So this I did like, like bold specific parts of what I wanted to communicate. And a lot of this, so this is more background about me. And then this is the intellectual merit part. This is where I used the individual research projects for the Goldwater. So it's like every sentence that I bolded is a different project that I put down. It looks a bit messy, but I think, yeah, something. Um, I think a big part of your research when you're explaining it is to identify a question and how you're going to answer it. So, or a hypothesis and how you're going to test it. Broader impacts. For the NSF, they want to see that you really do care about your field and the community at large. And so I put a lot of sort of my volunteer work. Again, sort of, I didn't embellish, but like I made things sound better than they actually were. Um, yeah, so yeah, okay, so we'll stop sharing and talk about things. So, do you guys have any questions?
I had one about the research essay. So, like, I guess that's kind of hard to gauge, but how technical do you think your research essay was? And like, I guess, how did you figure out the balance between too technical and then not?
Yeah, that's a good question. Um, so for my research essay, since I applied for like the biological sciences, not a lot of people are going to know what genome, like computational genomic analysis stuff is. And I'm not sure, but Ellie, I don't know if everyone works with quantum physics. So I tried my best to like introduce people to the topic, like give good background. For that, you want to be very like general. You want to try and make it so like everyone can understand it. But for my actual methods and results, so your methods, I think you can be pretty specific. I mentioned specific uh, R coding packages that I use. I said my N value, how many different cancers I was working with, um, and like the actual analysis that I did. So I think for methods, you can being specific helps. But you don't want to put things in there that like don't really matter. Um, like I don't think I needed to actually say that I ran 50,000 permutations for a thing. Like I don't think I needed to say that. I think just saying it like a permutation analysis would have been fine. Um, and you don't have to talk about like, oh, setting p-values or whatever. Uh, if you say your thing was significant, then you can kind of get that. Yeah. I think talking in broad terms, like if you used a package, if you used a specific equation that people should know about, that's good to be specific, but in your like nitty gritty kind of stuff, like you wouldn't, if you were in like chemistry or whatever, you probably wouldn't talk about how to pipette something, even though that is like an important thing to do correctly. People know what pipetting is, right? You wouldn't even say pipetting. You would just say like you did a thing, and yeah. So, I, does that help?
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess
So
first sorry, and then
yeah.
and then also how much did you so a piece of feedback I got back on my research essay from Dr. Gorka was that I should put even more emphasis on the broader impacts of my research. So how much like what was the scope of your impacts? Do you know what I mean? Like how much are you stretching? Like
Yeah.
not like I don't want to say stretching, but like how far
No,
are you like extending?
I think that's a good question. Is this it? This is sorry, I have so many. I'm just, this is what, okay. So talk about my results. I think my actual results were, it's literally a paragraph. But my actual impact and like what I plan to do in the future is more than my actual results. Like it's longer. Um, I think you want to mention how it's important for the field and like how it could change things. So like if people would think about something differently. Um, I think you have a lot of room with like quantum physics. I think not a lot of people are know about that kind of stuff. So I think the fact that it's a new thing in general, learning anything about that is so much better than not having anything. So I think uh I think this last sentence, you definitely want to end your essay with like a broader impact thing. I think this holds true for literally any sort of scientific writing that you do, whether it's a paper or a review or a presentation or a poster or whatever. You want to end with like, why should we care? Um, so for this, every, everyone loves cancer, right? Um, and offering a new type of like method to identify genes is pretty novel, and there's a big thing with um, disparities between different so sex and then race and age. There's a lot of things that people haven't really considered in their research, and so adding in a new thing to what's already known would be good. So if you just add in like, let's see, if you like modify like an equation slightly, like I think that would be really important. um I don't think it's like hugely important to have a broader impact stuff, but you definitely want to end with it. Like honestly, like reading through this, I think this is the only part that I talked about like the field. The rest of it is like what I plan to do. Um, but I think the other essays, the ones where uh like your background or whatever. I think that should be about broader impacts. I can't find it. Yeah. Um, yeah, I think you should mention it, but also I think the research essay is really about showing how rigorous your research is. So I don't think it has to be super important. Like you like you just saw, like I think my broader impact was one sentence. Um, yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. So, Jack, do you have any questions?
No, I think I'm good. I was gonna ask about broader impacts too. So that was helpful.
Yeah. The broader impacts is like really important for the NSF. Like there's a whole section on it, right? But for the Goldwater, I think they just want to see that like you're a good scientist. Like you know what you're doing, your methods are solid, and your question is interesting. Um, okay, I think that's where I'll end the recording and we'll go through each of your guys' essays. Thanks for following along. Hopefully you guys found something interesting about this recording and have an easier job applying for the Goldwater.